Bible worm, reading the Bible, Bible worm.
Hello and welcome to Bible Worm. My name is Dr. Amy Robertson, and I'm joined each week by Dr. Bobby Williamson to enjoy, explore, wonder at, and wrestle with biblical text. We are Bible scholars and people of faith, one Jewish and one Christian. We are also parents, community members, and all-around regular folks, gathering to sit with the text, trying to make sense of it in the world we know. We hope our conversations spark new questions and discoveries for you to explore. Up this week is Mark chapter 6, verses 1 through 29. We'll explore the relationship between our faith and God's power, and the challenge of seeing people in our communities as they are, not as they were. We reckon with our own power to effect healing, and Bobby invokes the wisdom of Meatloaf, the rocker, not the hot dish. Thank you for joining us. Hello, Bobby!
Hey, Amy, how are you this week?
I am great, and I want to welcome everybody to Bible Worm.
Bible worm!
Formerly known as NLDR.
Bible worm, reading the Bible, Bible worm. What are we doing today, Amy?
Today, we are not only singing about Bible Worm, we are reading Mark chapter 6, verses 1 through 29. He left that place and came to his hometown, and his disciples followed him. On the Sabbath he began to teach in the synagogue, and many who heard him were astounded. They said, "Where did this man get all this? What is this wisdom that has been given to him? What deeds of power are being done by his hands? Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James and Joseph?" Sorry, what the hell name is that?
Can you imagine, like, your name is Joseph and your brother's name is Jesus, and people would always be, like, confusing you? You're like, yo, Joseph! And like, no, I'm Jesus. Wait, and that would be terrible. Like,
and
you just keep changing the vowels. Yeah, it's Jesus, Joseph, Juices, and sometimes Jesus.
Okay, I'll start that verse over. Is not this the carpenter, the son of Mary, and brother of James, and Joseph, and Judas, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us? And they took offense at him. This is a familiar situation.
Yeah.
Is it not?
It is.
Have you ever tried to bring some wisdom to your home, to people who knew you when you were very small and not particularly wise?
Yeah, I mean, some people would argue that that's still a good description of me. But yeah, I mean, I think it takes, like, when people get to know you in one kind of a context, and then you show up kind of with a different, kind of carrying yourself in a different way. Like, yeah, that's complicated for sure.
Yeah, and when people, like, sort of identify really closely with you, they've watched you grow up, you're one of us, right? You're one of us. And if I don't have that kind of wisdom, you don't have that kind of wisdom.
Right. That's absolutely right.
I think it's a pretty relatable story.
Yeah, I mean, so it's so interesting to see Jesus, like, in that sense of, like, you know, we think of Jesus as, like, having the human experience, and I think this is kind of an interesting part.
Yeah, that's what he's having right here. Yeah.
Yep. People are like, who the heck are you, dude? Like, we knew you when you were in diapers or whatever. Yeah, when you were in swaddling clothes, like, we knew you. Mm-hmm. And even though they seem to recognize, like, they're talking about all these amazing deeds he's doing and things, like, they've seen the receipts. And still, they're like, hey, I don't know who you are.
Yeah, I just think of, like, when he was preaching in the very beginning of Mark in a community that didn't know him, and that same sort of sense of authority was so appealing to them.
Yeah.
You know, this finally someone who teaches with authority.
Yeah.
And here they're like, where are you claiming this authority? Like, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's right.
The other thing that this passage really made me think of was the demoniac. We talked that week about sort of his desire to leave his hometown and follow Jesus. And maybe it was out of sort of a sense of, like, piety and amazement at Jesus' abilities, but also maybe it was he didn't think his hometown would ever be able to really see his transformation, and they would always see him as the guy who was living in the graveyard, you know?
Yeah.
Sort of no matter what the reality was.
Yeah.
And that made me think of this, of sort of the community's inability to see the Jesus who was standing before them as opposed to the Jesus that they knew however many years ago.
One of the things, and we've talked about this before, is that Mark really is kind of invested in the rejection of Jesus by, like, all the people. And so the scribes and Pharisees rejected him back at the beginning of chapter 3, and then his family actually rejected him also in chapter 3 in a passage we didn't read. Here his hometown is rejecting him. Later the disciples are going to reject him. So this is this kind of theme that Mark's developing where this Jesus thing is so impossible that people just can't accept it.
All right, verse 4. Then Jesus said to them, "Prophets are not without honor except in their hometown and among their own kin and in their own house. And he could do no deed of power there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and cured them. And he was amazed at their unbelief." What do you think it means that he could do no deed of power there? Like, was his power reduced, or would the people not acknowledge anything? It was sort of like you could do no right, you could do no wrong. Like, you know, like was it sort of, or is it describing the perception of the people or of like Jesus's?
I mean, to me, it reads quite literally. Yeah, that Jesus's powers were not at their full capacity because of the unbelief. Isn't it? Yeah.
That's so fascinating.
We tend to think of divine power, and I mean reasonably so, as like a one-way street, right? You know, like God has power and Jesus conveys that power. But here it seems like it's a two-way street. It requires belief in order for Jesus to be able to fully enact his power. I have two thoughts. One is it's kind of funny that like he couldn't do anything except he healed a bunch of sick people. So it's like
he just healed a couple people, whatever.
Which
but
was
he couldn't do anything really. I mean, he just raised someone from the dead.
Yeah. The bar has been raised.
At curing old, messed up toenails or whatever. Who cares?
Yeah. At the very beginning of the gospel, it's like, oh my gosh, he's healing sick people, and now it's like, whatever. But the other thing is, this reminds me of the passage that we read last week in which the woman with the flow of blood kind of claimed healing for herself because of her belief that led her to go and touch Jesus, and the healing took place. Like, Jesus' power was so overflowing in that instance that he didn't even control it. Like, it just happened. And so here we have the kind of flip of that where people lack belief and Jesus can't muster any power. It's so I think these stories are both playing with that same idea that the divine power to heal depends on people's capacity to believe or to trust or to act in faith that he actually can heal.
Ooh, that's a lot.
That's a lot.
I've been thinking a lot about faith and belief and hope and how those categories interact since our last conversation, and that you just took it to a whole other level there, Bobby.
I didn't do it. Mark did it.
Well, so
I just say what's on the. All I do is read the text.
That's all you're doing. Just reading the text. Okay, so now we're into our next story, starting with the second half of verse 6. Then he went about among the villages teaching. He called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2. And gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and not to put on 2 tunics. He said to them, "Wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. If any place will not welcome you and they refuse to hear you, as you leave, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them."
Yes.
These are amazing instructions. I love them so much.
Yeah.
So they went out and proclaimed that all should repent. They cast out many demons and anointed with oil many who were sick and cured them.
Yeah.
So Jesus can now transfer his authority.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
His authority over unclean spirits. That seems like a pretty big deal.
That is a big deal. Yeah, I mean, I think I've read that so many times that I'm just like, he transferred his authority. but you're right. Like, this is a new thing that we're seeing.
It's like, I think of, in a lot of the stories of leaders in the biblical text, there's a point where they just are sort of like, okay, I need to give other people authority. Like whether for Moses, it's like a group of judges.
Yeah.
And for Jesus, it's like this group of disciples who can do these healings. But yeah, it can't all be one person.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. And, I think, a lot of these, you kind of have to read with like two different kind of perspectives at the same time. One is the narrative time frame, but the other is the early church who's reading this after the resurrection. And so the sending of the disciples obviously is kind of a prelude to the sending of the church. And so to say, those who, not only did Jesus transfer authority to his 12 closest, but that authority then transfers on down. So in some ways, Mark is telling Jesus's readers, like, this authority that Jesus carries is now your authority. So go and do that too.
Okay. And then we get these 3 pieces of like travel advice, not advice, travel instruction.
Yeah.
The first one is basically pack light.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. No, that's exactly it. This might remind you of the story of the Exodus, the instructions in the Passover in Exodus chapter...
Yeah, they had to go so quickly.
12, yeah. The instructions there in Exodus chapter 12, verse 11, you should be dressed with your sandals on your feet and your walking stick in your hand. And then you have to eat in a hurry because Pharaoh's going to let you go. There's some sense in which you got to be light on your feet for this new journey that God is sending you on. I also think there is a sense of like, there's a little bit of vulnerability in being packed that lightly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
And so on the one hand, I think that could be like trust that God's going to take care of you. But then I think also maybe trust that the people to whom you are going are going to take care of you too. Like be positively predisposed that the people will receive you. And so trust the kindness of others.
Yeah, it really sort of underscores like the dependence and the vulnerability, and maybe because they're coming in with this power to heal, it's important that they don't seem like powerful people in other ways.
Yeah,
it's not creating like a complete power dynamic. Like it sort of balances out the power dynamic. Like they have healing capacities, but they're also dependent on the people that they're healing for other things, so it doesn't become sort of a
I like that a lot. Yeah.
Generously give to you while you receive.
To take care of you even while you're taking care of them. I love that. That's a great interpretation.
The second one, wherever you enter a house, stay there until you leave the place. Okay, can you put that in some like plain English for me?
I think it's just saying like pick your lodging place and then
stay there like for the duration of the time you're in the town. Why does that seem important?
There's something there about, like, that old saying, like, dance with the one who brought you or something like that. Like,
love the one you're with, like that kind of thing?
No, that's a totally different... that's a totally different saying.
Okay,
no. Yeah. Which is to say, if someone takes you in, like, then you shouldn't be, like, trying to trade up to a better place. You know what I mean? Like...
Oh, I see. Okay.
So here I think it's if you find someone who will take you in this hostile world that you're talking about, like... then like take that seriously and value that relationship and don't kind of be looking over their shoulder to see if someone better might be.
Yeah, who's like a spare bedroom or whatever.
Yeah.
And now the foot dirt.
The foot dirt.
If any place will not welcome you and they refuse to hear you, do you think that a place means like a house or a city? Or like a village?
I was understanding it as a village.
Okay. If any village won't hear you and doesn't welcome you, shake off the dust that is on your feet as a testimony against them. Well, that's a little better than shaking it off in someone's house, which is what I was picturing.
Yeah.
I was like, that's a little gross.
Yeah. If you shook your dust off your feet in my house, like no one would really notice that you had done it. Because, oh my dear Lord, I have a 2-year-old. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the way that I read that is just, like, if they're going to take you in, like, then be fully on board.
Yeah.
If they're not going to take you in, like, be totally done with them. And so even the dust that belonged to them that is on your feet, just like, see you later, and move on to the next place. So there's a sense of, like, not wasting your time trying to convince people who are not ready to be convinced, and to expect some rejection.
But I'm really enjoying picturing, like, how elaborate was this foot shaking ritual?
Yeah. It seems like a pretty aggressive a pretty aggressive foot shaking off. Yeah. Mm-hmm. No.
Okay, so they got their marching orders. That's good.
Yeah.
The transfer of power was successful.
Yeah.
I mean, that's wild.
Yeah, and it's wild. So interesting that this story of their successful exercise of power comes right after the story we just read about Jesus not being able to exercise his power successfully.
Yeah.
I mean, for just this one moment anyway, the disciples are more successful in their mission than Jesus is in his.
Verse 14. King Herod heard of it, for Jesus' name had become known. Some were saying, John the Baptizer has been raised from the dead, and for this reason these powers are at work in him. But others said, it is Elijah. And others said, it is a prophet, like one of the prophets of old. But when Herod heard of it, he said, John, whom I beheaded, has been raised. Mm-hmm. This is a fascinating introduction to this story, I think.
It is, yeah.
That line at the end, because I feel like the whole time I'm reading it, it's sort of as like, I don't know what to make of any of this. Like, okay, people are trying to figure out what is Jesus' deal.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like, who is this guy? And then Herod says that he thinks it's John the Baptist, but he says, John, whom I beheaded, has been raised.
Yeah.
That's pretty ominous. Doesn't that seem ominous to you?
Oh, it's super ominous. And and we haven't heard anything about it. Like, then we get the story, coming up here. But when you're just reading along in Mark's gospel, like, we haven't heard about John since chapter 1. And then suddenly we're like, oh, yeah. Like, in the past tense. The guy I beheaded has been resurrected.
Yeah. And if I beheaded him, I obviously don't want another one of him around. Or maybe he feels like Jesus is coming back to get him. Or hey, you beheaded me, so you're in trouble now.
Yeah. Like, I read it a little bit like the Telltale Heart or whatever that Edgar Allan Poe story is.
It's just like the Telltale Heart.
Yeah. So he's become obsessed with John the Baptist now that he has killed John the Baptist. And he sees him everywhere.
Yeah. Okay, verse 17. For Herod himself had sent men who arrested John, bound him, and put him in prison on account of Herodias, his brother Philip's wife, because Herod had married her. For John had been telling Herod, it is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife. And Herodias had a grudge against him and wanted to kill him. But she could not, for Herod feared John, knowing that he was a righteous and holy man, and he protected him. When he heard him, he was greatly perplexed, and yet he liked to listen to him. Okay, plot summary. Give me what is happening?
So there has been some sort of intrigue in which Herod has ended up married to his brother Philip's wife, Herodias. And John the Baptist is the one who has said, you're breaking the law. Like, haven't you read Leviticus 18?
Right.
You can't do this.
You can't do that.
And so Herodias, who, I mean, she's traded up, I assume, from Philip to Herod.
Yeah, that makes sense. Because it's interesting that Herod doesn't seem bothered by the fact that John the Baptist said that. But Herodias is bothered.
Yeah, Herodias is angry about it.
Yeah.
And wants him to die.
Yeah.
But Herod thinks highly of John, apparently.
Mm-hmm.
Thinks of him as righteous and likes to listen to him. And so here you have a situation in which the king is sort of, I mean, he's threatened by, but positively predisposed to John the Baptist, and his wife is the one who has it in for John the Baptist. This might remind you of this the relationship of Ahab, the king of Israel, and Jezebel, his Phoenician wife, and the prophet Elijah, where everybody knows Elijah's a troublemaker, but Ahab thinks of him as a man of God, maybe that he shouldn't mess with, but Jezebel is trying to kill him. Back in 1 Kings 18 and 19.
Yeah, that's a really good parallel.
And so I think that this story maybe in some way sort of retelling that story.
Okay, verse 21. But an opportunity came when Herod on his birthday gave a banquet for his courtiers and officials and for the leaders of Galilee. When his daughter Herodias came in and danced, she pleased Herod and his guests, and the king said to the girl, ask me for whatever you wish, and I will give it. And he solemnly swore to her, whatever you ask me, I will give you, even half of my kingdom. She went out and said to her mother, what should I ask for? She replied, the head of John the Baptizer. Immediately she rushed back to the king and requested, "I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on a platter." The king was deeply grieved, yet out of regard for his oaths and for the guests, he did not want to refuse her. Immediately the king sent a soldier of the guard with orders to bring John's head. He went and beheaded him in the prison, brought his head on a platter, and gave it to the girl. Then the girl gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard about it, they came and took his body and laid it in a tomb. Is he watching his wife's daughter dance?
Yeah, and I mean the dancing there I think is meant to be, is provocative, right? It's not like
right. It reminds me of Esther, like the dancing in the book of Esther.
Yeah, she's not doing the chicken dance or something.
No, it's not like a little cute kid dancing.
Yeah. No, I think that your connection to the story of Esther is a good one, and so you've got this kind of over the top feast in which the king ends up doing something kind of stupid. Mm-hmm. But that line, "Ask me whatever you wish and I will give it to you," that's exactly up to half the kingdom. That's what King Ahasuerus says to Esther in the book of Esther. Mm-hmm. And so those two kings are being related to each other somehow or other. Mm-hmm. And, Ahasuerus is kind of a hapless king who gets manipulated by everybody.
Yeah, and is enchanted by beauty and easily led astray into violence.
Yeah.
And so then seems not to be able to go back on it. Is just sort of well, I said I would, so.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Really?
Yeah.
You're going to go behead someone because you told someone that you would do whatever they wanted? You're the king. You could totally be like, "Oh, no. That's not what I meant. I meant a cake."
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think that's exactly right. And so Herod he's been tricked by his wife and her daughter into doing something that he didn't really want to do, but ended up having to do it because of, he's made a promise that he can't go back on because it would bring shame to him, I guess, in the context of all these other people who are there. This is a very public kind of thing. And so I think he just feels like there's social pressure to do it. And so he does it. And so that's the way that John the Baptist goes out, somebody made a rash
not
promise.
An honor-filled way.
It's not. No. Not at all.
I kept looking back at the narrative lectionary to be like, that is that really where it just ends? It just ends? Now there's a headless John the Baptist that's being taken out of the prison and put into a tomb.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Yeah, that's where the story. The story...
Yeah, right, that's where the story ends.
In my reading, anyway, it intercalates with the next verse, which is the apostles returned to Jesus and told him everything they had done and taught, which could be also read as the beginning of the next story. Mm-hmm. But so this story of the beheading of John the Baptist is stuck in the middle of, Jesus sends out his apostles, we get that story, which is told in the past tense, and then the disciples come back. But so it's not just that the narrative lectionary is being weird there.
Yeah.
It's that the Bible is being weird.
Yeah. And
it lingers for a really long time on this story in which, Jesus and his disciples play no role in this story. Mm-hmm. That the gospel lingers over for, 10 or 12 verses.
Yeah. If it starts out by saying King Herod thinks Jesus is the second, I guess I shouldn't say the second coming, is the resurrected John the Baptist.
Yeah.
And then it says, this is what happened to John the Baptist.
Yep.
He died because the people in power were manipulated into doing something stupid that they weren't particularly committed to doing, but they just had to. Is that what Mark thinks of the crucifixion of Jesus, or no?
I think that's right. And I think that Mark is also saying to the early church reading on the other side of Jesus' resurrection, this is also probably what might happen to you. So it's the disciples who have been sent out from Jesus who call Herod's attention to Jesus. This is what gets Herod interested in Jesus in the first place. Mm-hmm. And eventually this kind of connection to the monarchy is what eventually is going to be Jesus' downfall in a certain kind of way. It takes the government and the religious authorities to bring Jesus down in the end. So it's the sending out of the disciples, them doing the miracles, catches the attention of the government, which reminds them of this other thing. So it sets in motion this whole Jesus story. And the fact that, we know that John the Baptist has been executed. We know that Jesus is going to be executed. And so, this is not a cheery story if you are an early follower of Jesus, because you're thinking like all the role models in this story are running into the authorities and getting themselves killed. And so I think there's a message here of this thing that you're doing is inherently dangerous. And it's not just necessarily because all the rulers are like of ill intent, but that they are kind of hapless and interested in their own honor, and they're open to being manipulated by people who have it in for you.
This brings us to the end of this week's portion of the Narrative Lectionary.
Yeah, how do you preach that?
Well, I think there are a couple things you could sort of dig deep on. I don't know how you'd pull out one sort of overarching message.
Yeah. Well, what do you want to dig deep on? Can I ask you that even though I'm supposed to answer first?
Yeah, you can. I am sort of going back to this first story that we read about what it's like to go back to people who knew you back when,
Yeah.
and figure out how to be your true and honest current self in the context of that community, and sort of living in congregational community life where we want people to stick around for the long haul.
Yeah.
It makes me think about how we give people space to change and evolve and develop different skills. And, when we have our annual congregational meetings every year, various meetings we have where people might have strong feelings about things, we sort of set some ground rules first. And I remember this one meeting where a congregant who is a psychologist suggested the ground rule, don't freeze people in time. And that one has really stuck with me. And what she meant at the time was sort of like, don't throw people's old words back at them. Like, you can ask them whether they have changed their mind or whether this fits in together, but like, don't hold them to something that they said even at the beginning of the meeting. Like, if we want to have an authentic conversation, we need to have space for all of us to evolve.
Yeah.
And I just think of all the places in our world where we don't have this. Like, I'm not thinking of any particular situation here. It happens, I think, on all sides of the political spectrum. But how often I hear people complain, like, well, not complain, but say, like, this politician said a different thing in 1982. Like, how can we trust them? And it's sort of like, well, do we really want people who are frozen in time and are exactly, their views and perspectives haven't changed, or else we don't trust them? I don't want that.
Yeah.
But it's hard to do this in community. But I think that if we want people to stay in a community for the long term, we have to figure out how to let people be who they really are and still have all of their roots and all of their history, but not let it sort of box them in.
Yeah. That's really lovely. And just thinking about Jesus getting boxed in, like, that is so interesting to me to think.
Don't put Jesus in a box. So far we have don't put Jesus under the bed.
Don't put him in a box.
And don't put Jesus in a box.
Yeah.
Those are good rules to live by. What are you thinking?
This thing that we were talking about where Jesus can't do miracles because the people don't have faith. Like, I'm really struck by that. And like, oftentimes Christianity gets talked about as though people are kind of passive recipients of whatever God decides to do. And this passage is suggesting that people are active participants in the healing of the world. And, especially in connection with the last story that we read where the woman kind of claims healing and just calls it out of Jesus unbeknownst to him. And here the opposite story where Jesus can't do things even that maybe he wants to do because the people don't trust in him enough. And I mean, there's something there about, like, people have an important role to play.
Yeah.
And in trusting the healing power of God and living as though they believe that it's possible for God to effect healing. The other piece that's here is this, like, commissioning the disciples to say, like, Jesus has actually transferred authority to heal the world to people. And especially for those of us who claim this tradition as our own, like, we are those people, and so that authority has been transferred to us. And so whatever it means in contemporary life to be going around casting out demons and anointing sick people and healing them. Like, that's the stuff that we could be doing, ought to be doing, can be doing.
You know, I heard, oh gosh, I wish I remembered her name. I can look it up later. But at a podcast, I listen to On Being a lot, and they were doing an interview, and she was talking with someone who sort of was talking about this sense of like powerlessness in the face of all the troubles in the world, and said, instead of thinking about all the ways in which you are not qualified and you don't know what to do and you don't have the power you wish you had, ask yourself, like, what if I am exactly what's needed in this situation?
Yeah.
If I'm exactly what's needed, what do I need to do? Like, let's just go with that for a minute.
Yeah.
And that's been a really powerful
I love that. Yeah.
question for me.
Yeah. To me, that's related to this idea of, to the people who receive you, like, stay with them.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
the people who don't receive you, like, shake off the dust. And, you know, it's not the case that you are needed everywhere or that you're welcome everywhere. And so we could spend a lot of time and energy like wishing we were needed or pretending that we're needed or wanted in places that we're not. And instead of like investing ourselves in the places where that have opened their doors to us. There's something there about like when you find an opportunity to be with people and to share something with them, like take that opportunity seriously and linger there as long as you need to be there. Instead of kind of looking over your shoulder for the next thing or the better thing.
Yeah, yeah.
The beheading passage, like, you know, like it's a big chunk of this text. And so, like,
I know it is.
If you're if you're gonna read the whole text, like, I feel like you gotta have something to say about that. And so, if I were preaching, I don't know what I would do. But the only thing that I currently know to say about that is that. So John the Baptist gets Herod's attention by criticizing him. So criticizing authority gets you in trouble. Jesus draws Herod's attention because he and his followers are healing people in the world. So doing good things in the world gets you in trouble. And like, I just think that like there's something here that I think Mark was trying to say to his original audience, which we could overhear, which is, if you're doing the things that the gospel calls you to do, which is to criticize authority and to bring healing in the world, like criticize authority where it's on the side of, not on the side of the people, and to bring healing where there is pain. Like if you do too much bad or you do too much good, or like if you point out things that are bad or do too much good, you're going to get people's attention, and that might not turn out well for you. It didn't turn out well for John the Baptist. It doesn't turn out well for Jesus. Why would you think it's going to turn out well for you? And that's no reason not to do those things.
Right. I mean, I think that, especially in the context of the story where Herod just looks like an idiot.
Yeah.
It really drives home for me that message that, like, do the thing that you know is right.
Yes.
Without fear of repercussion. Whatever the repercussion is, it is important that you, like, act with your own sense of integrity. Because, I'm sorry, like, I know oaths were a big deal, but you can't tell me that the king could not find. He would have felt a little embarrassed, ashamed, whatever. People would not have liked that whole scene. Yeah. He did not have to behead John the Baptist. I just don't believe it.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to.
Like,
that's dumb.
If he had known the great artist Meatloaf, and he could have just said, Herodias, I would do anything for love, but I won't do that.
I won't do that. No, I won't do that.
So, like, what else do you need? Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and that message of people in positions of authority who are doing things they know are wrong because they feel beholden to something.
It's like a game of truth or dare. Like,
yeah, or some public, like they've made some public proclamations and they feel like they can't go back on them. Like, that's very much alive in our culture at this moment. And so, I think that's exactly right.
Well, I think we covered it all, Bobby.
I think we did.
I think we did.
Bible worm.
Bible worm, yes. Thanks for finding us here, y'all. I hope it was not hard to find us. Next week, we are skipping a little bit. We're skipping the second part of chapter 6. And we are reading Mark chapter 7, 1 through 23.
All right, I'm looking forward to it. Good
Me
talking
too.
to you.
Y'all have a great week.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of Bible Worm. Come back soon.